If every one of us has all the ingredients within us to create prosperity, then leadership becomes a matter of training ourselves to use all those ingredients to bring that prosperity out. See, I'm not convinced leaders are born. Leaders are made. They are trained. And leaders choose to use the prosperity within to motivate and inspire others. And that involves developing a leadership mindset. I am convinced that when you stop watching this video, when you leave this class, when you graduate from school, and ultimately when you leave this earth, you will be remembered by the story that you write about yourself and nothing different. And is that a yes and or yes but story? Now you're asking, what is a yes and or yes but story? Great question. To illustrate, I'm going to talk about 2 U.S. presidents who served before you were born. But after you hear the story, you'll notice that history views them very differently. Listen to this tale of 2 presidents, President Reagan and President Nixon. Both had similar paths, parallel journeys to the White House. Both won statewide office in the state of California. Because of the story they told about themselves, history views them very differently. Reagan was yes and Nixon was yes but. Listen closely. Reagan would say, yes, I was poor, and I was emotionally wealthy. Yes, it was a challenge to deal with a tough Congress, with opposing party, and that gave me alternative viewpoints to choose from. Yes, the Cold War was looming, and that was the opportunity to find allies for peace. See, Nixon wrote a different story about himself. Nixon would say, yes, I went to college, but I didn't go to an Ivy League school, and that's where the elites went. Yes, I was popular, but I had enemies. Yes, I was president, but the media was out to get me. He wrote a very different story about himself. And guess what? People believe the story he wrote. What can this look like for you right now in your life? Let me give you an example. One Saturday afternoon, I was at a lacrosse field watching my younger son play lacrosse, and one of my older son's friends walks by. This young man was a junior in high school at the time, and I said to him, hey man, how you doing? He turned to me and said, just okay, Mr. Quiggle, and he put his head down and walked away. I thought to myself, sounds like he may need to talk about something. Like he was down, and I could tell that something was wrong. So I excused myself from the group of parents I was talking with, followed this young man, who's a friend of my son's, and called to him, hey, hold on just a second. He stopped, turned back in my direction. I approached him and said, hey, is everything okay? Starting to look at colleges? And he said, well, actually, Mr. Quiggle, I'm thinking of taking a year off from school. And I thought to myself, a year off from high school? Last time I checked, that's called dropping out. So I said, hey, look, I'm not going to preach to you without permission. That was a pretty important statement you just said to me. Are you okay? He starts to tell me his problems. He used to have a 3.5 GPA, and now it's a 2.5. His parents are upset with him because of his grades. He doesn't feel like they believe in him anymore. His girlfriend just broke up with him. His friends aren't being very encouraging. He's feeling pretty lonely. At this time in his life, all these problems feel legitimately important. So I listened to him. And at the end, he said, so I just don't know what to do, Mr. Quiggle. After listening, because leaders hopefully intently listen to truly understand the situation, I said to him, you know what? You write the story of your life. You write the story of your own success. And I told him about yes and yes but. And then I said, so are you going to let the story be written for you? Because if you don't deliberately write your story, make no mistake, it will be written for you. And my hunch is, you won't like it. Poor so-and-so drops out of high school, girl breaks his heart and he never recovers, parents are disappointed, he never tries to rise above their expectations. Or are you going to write a new story that starts today that says, yes, I had a hard time, and now I'm on my way back. Yes, I made some mistakes, and I learned how to do things differently in the future. Yes, I had some failure, and I chose to use failure to make me stronger. Because all believe that story. Your teachers will believe it. Your friends will believe it. Your family will believe it if you believe it. So that young man goes off to his lacrosse practice. I go back to my own son's lacrosse game. An hour later, as I'm leaving the field, I see this young man out of the corner of my eye, and he's sprinting toward me. He gets about 30 feet from me and yells, Mr. Quiggle. I turn around, And he looks at me, points, he says, yes, and thank you. Here's the reality. At the end of the day, we can only control ourselves and our responses to whatever life throws our way. So your friends, they're listening. Your parents, they're listening. Your teachers, coaches, people who watch you every single day, they're listening. Your boss and coworkers someday will be listening to the story you tell. Some of you will start your own business and customers will be listening. And you better believe it. Someday the family you create will hang on your every word. They definitely will be listening to the story that you tell each and every day. And I understand. It is so easy to get into that yes, but mindset and tell that negative yes, but story. But my teacher, but my brother or sister, but my parents, but the weather, but it's unfair, but I don't like it, but it's hard. You can't control those things. And what can we control? Our attitude, our outlook on life, the story you write for yourself. When you write a yes but story, you will be consumed by all things you can't control. You'll be more likely to feel the victim of your circumstances rather than the champion over them. You'll be crippled because you are primarily focused on a whole host of unfairness life hurls at you. Life will deliver knocks, and some pretty bad ones at times. And if you focus on writing a yes and story, you still won't be able to control what happens to you. However, you will empower yourself to control your response to what happens to you. Writing a yes and story equips you to take control of the situation and your life moving forward. Yes and allows you to see life's knocks not as problems that plague you, rather challenges for you to overcome. And you can focus on creating something good out of any mess. When you write a yes and story, you create space and opportunity for you to be the champion, not the victim. You create for yourself a deeper sense of life satisfaction. You can pass that satisfaction on to others in your life. And you can start to harness that prosperity inside of you. Train yourself from today forward to write a yes and story and tell a positive story for yourself and others.